Hey everybody, it's Denise and I'm here at our Murray store, Nuttles. I'm gonna whip up a pillowcase and I needed to do it, so I figured I'd do it on camera and just show you guys how this is done. It's really easy, fast, and a fun method for making a pillowcase. So the main body of my pillowcase is gonna be the stars. I normally cut about a 27-inch piece, selvage to selvage. We're making this one a little bit longer, so ours is about a 7/8 of a yard piece of fabric. The contrast, I'm gonna do a little contrast band. This is a 2.5-inch wide strip, again, selvage to selvage. And it was, again, 2.5 inches wide. I have pre-folded it in half to work with in a moment. Lastly, we have that outer cuff piece. I use 9 inches, 1/4 of a yard, and I'm gonna start with that piece face up on the table. So the 9-inch wide, long 44-inch piece is gonna go first, face up, and then I'm gonna take my contrast fabric. Raw edges are going to line up with the raw edge of my 9-inch piece. And I'm just going to pin that a little bit, not completely, because I'm gonna take those pins out in a moment and repin. So the length of these fabrics may vary slightly. I'm not gonna be too stressed about that right now because again, I have to unpin and repin with my main fabric. So I'm just kind of pinning maybe about a half a dozen or less pins in this whole thing. Again, if there's a little overhang, don't stress about it. We're gonna cut it off in the next step. So I'm just gonna set some pins in here to keep everything in line. The next thing that we're going to do is take the main part of the pillowcase and put the selvage to selvage edges, right sides together, all lined up again. So you'll have ultimately 4 layers, the 9-inch piece, the folded contrast fabric, and then the main body, all raw edges together. Again, I'm pinning this a little bit. This is not my final pinning step, so I'm just kind of layering these pieces together so that I can do one final awesome pinning job in a moment when everything is all together. So I'm just gonna do a couple more here, and then we have a magical step coming up next. When I sew these together in a moment, I am going to use a serger. You don't have to use a serger, but I like the final step to be done with a serger, so I'm gonna just do the whole thing. Okay, so next I've got the body of the pillowcase, and I'm gonna fold that up pretty concisely. So I'm just gonna kind of roll it all the way up in here so that I see the other end of my band, my 9-inch piece of fabric. And what I'm gonna do with that, making sure to keep all this out of the way. If you need to use some clips or something, that's not a bad idea. I'm gonna take the other raw edge of my 9-inch piece and fold it all the way up, right sides together with everything else. And now is when that final pinning process happens. So you'll now have your 9-inch fabric right side up, then the contrast strip, then one layer of your body, and then the other layer of the 9-inch contrast fabric right sides together, all in one big sandwich. So I am going to next take this to my serger and just zip across here. And I only have one rule when we do this. Don't serge over your pins. I'll be right back. So when you're serging, just make sure you're catching all those layers together. You can take a little bit of a wider seam allowance if you want to make sure that you catch everything. Okay, so just want to make sure that when you did that serging step, you caught all of the layers. Let's go back over to the table and we'll do the next step. So nextly, we're going to just turn everything. This is the cool step. We're going to turn everything just through that casing that we made. a minute to do this. It's like a snake. So the final step, one step left to do, you can crease this if you want, this contrast band piece. You can crease that, go take it to the iron if you want to press that out. You can do that after. But last step, all we have to do is put everything right sides together this way, and we're going to try to line up those seams. So line up the seams here, maybe you can't really flip seam allowances over. So you're gonna line up the edge, we're gonna pin all the way down, obviously cutting off all that selvage. If you feel the need to use the rotary cutter and clean that off beforehand, that's totally fine. And then we'll finally stitch this side here right into the fold. So I'm gonna pin this and meet you back in a second. So I trimmed off the selvage edge here and gave myself a nice clean edge to pin from. I lined up the two folded edges at the top. I lined up the seams here, and then I pinned across the bottom. I'm gonna start serging from here because I really want this to line up well. I'm gonna work my way down here, and then I'm gonna go from the corner to the fold. That way, if there's any shift that happens, it doesn't distort the edge here. It just goes into the fold, and it works out great. So let's go to the serger and finish this baby up. Okay guys, that's it. Remember my one and only rule in this whole thing, don't serge over your pins. And if you're not using a serger and you're using a regular sewing machine, the rule is the same, please don't sew over your pins. Our pillowcase is done. I would go and thread this little tail back through or snip it down, use some fray check to hide that. And how awesome is that? Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy making your pillowcases.